Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror.
So today we're doing our review on Castlevania Nocturne Season 2.
Which is available now on Netflix. So we're going to talk to you guys about the positives of this, the negatives of this, and then our overall thoughts. And this is going to be slightly spoilery.
But not really. Maybe a little bit, but...
Right. But you can check it out now on Netflix. As for now, let's get to our positives.
So some of the positives, the animation looks really good. I like how most of the characters look, and just like the way the sun shines and like the town, it looks almost real, but it's, a cartoon, and just like the visuals are just stunning. Like the sun, and the moon is like shining and stuff. It looks really great.
Yeah. It does look very realistic at a lot of points. The gore is so good in this. Vampires getting their arms sliced off, getting their heads sliced off, rooms full of dead bodies with blood splatter all over the place. I was very impressed with the amount of gore and how brutal they made this show.
Yeah, so and for you Castlevania lovers, they do put little Easter eggs, like they're eating pork chops, for example.
I was like, I wonder if they had to break open a wall to find that one. They do portray the loss and feeling of dread very well. You can feel the emotion of the characters throughout, even when they're not talking, like the facial features, and you can feel the emotion, and it's really hard to do that with animation. So they were really able to capture a lot of those moments and make you feel really bad for a lot of these characters.
There's a lot of action too, especially the last couple episodes. It's very action-packed, and you're kind of like on the edge of your seat the entire time, so that's pretty awesome.
Yep. And Richter Belmont uses a whip, which you guys know made me very, very happy. Just Belmont's grandson, I can never say his first name right. I always want to say Just, but I think it's Just Belmont, his grandson. So we do get a lot of the lineage throughout this as well.
Yeah. And then you have this vampire night creature hybrid. She squeezes a female captain and from the Revolutionary Army. She's the captain, and she squeezes her, and like her eyes turn red, and it looks like this lady is actually being like suffocated to death.
You should have ran.
Yeah, and just the way her eyes look and her mouth is bleeding looks really great.
Right, I totally agree with that.
It just makes me really love the superior villains. I like that they're both women. You have the goddess from Egypt, and then you have Countess
Elizabeth.
Yeah, so I like that they're both
very powerful women.
Yes, and you also get a quote from our dear Maria. Most of the bad in the world is because of stupid old men. I was like, isn't that fucking relevant? Yes.
And that moment was that might have been one of my favorite moments in the whole show. That was a very, I'm trying to, not be spoilery here. You're pulling for her to make the right decision in this moment, and she doesn't.
And you kind of get it, like, all the things that she's been through. She's only, I can't really say human because I don't.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next thing. Because like I said, we really don't want to be too spoilery here with this. But there's an emotional scene with Annette and her dead mom.
Yeah.
And obviously for me, that scene hit really, really hard. But there's way more emotion and like sad scenes in this than I expected coming into it. Like this show was a lot more emotional, this season especially, than I anticipated it being. Like there was plenty of moments where I was like, damn, this is fucking sad. Or overwhelming or powerful. Like the amount of emotion they made for this show was just right on point. And this has a great score. Like the score to it is beautiful,
which helps with the emotion. And I think it intensifies the emotion because of like it almost feels like sad, like sadness.
But then you also have a great soundtrack. Like there's one character, I can't think of his name. He looks amazing, but he's always singing.
The guy with
the hands on his face. Yeah, and he's always singing. And whenever he sings
got a really pretty voice.
I can also say, when you're watching this and you do get to these singing moments, watch it with subtitles because they're actually singing about what's happening.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it, but like we're going back and we're watching. I'm like, they wrote this for this scene, and it works so well. But it's kind of hard to decipher the words when you're watching it. But watch it with the subtitles on, because they're definitely singing about the things that are happening in those moments, which I thought was really amazing as well. So
those are our positive guys. So now we are going to get into our negatives. So some of the negatives, the pacing is off. It feels like the story is, you have a lot of action, you have a lot going on in a couple of episodes, and then some of the episodes just kind of, they drag. So it's like you could have taken some of the content from those episodes and put them in the other episodes, so it felt like it was more, the pacing was better. It was more like,
consistent.
Yeah. The consistency, the pacing, it was definitely off.
Yeah, and it's very noticeable, especially because I feel like it's a little more forgivable with live action when you have limitations. In animation, you have no limitations like that. And they prove it during the action sequences. The action sequences in this are just amazing.
They're really great, yeah.
So good. So there's so much more they could have done in these moments where we have 20 minutes worth of walking in the woods and talking.
Yeah.
That we could have, sped things up a little bit.
So the overdrawn dialogue really, it really makes it like, you just went from this action-packed episode, and now we're walking, like you said, walking through the woods, and we're talking about our, whatever.
A lot of talk about our feelings.
Yeah, which is fine.
It was totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of how Elizabeth looked after the transformation. She looks like a mole rat.
She does. She looks like a freaking mole rat. Like, she's supposed to be this like powerful vampire, and I was just like, what are we doing here? Most of the character designs are really great, but that one was not
very good at all.
So this is really for like a specific audience. If you don't really know the lore, you might not really understand some of it.
You might get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
If you were like, oh, I want to learn about Castlevania, and you go and you learn about every single, video game and adaptation, you might get, it's kind of how we felt going into Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know anything about the lore, and then when you start to learn, I thought it was just a couple video games, and then I learned about what the lore really is, and it's huge. And it's the same thing with Castlevania. So if you go into this looking for that, I could see where someone that's not familiar would get very overwhelmed. And there were a lot of rumors flying after season 1 that we were going to get Simon Belmont in this, and I was stoked. As a Simon's Quest defender, I was ready for some Simon Belmont, and he does not show up throughout the season. No. I don't even think he's mentioned, and it's just like, for me, it's like, no. We got Richter, who is great. We got Alucard. We got a lot of these characters, but for someone who really fell off after the Super Nintendo era, a lot of this, even for me, is very overwhelming. I don't know a lot of these characters, so having to follow up with all that was kind of hard for me even. So I was, the end of the day, I was sad we didn't get Simon.
Yeah.
That was my biggest takeaway from that. So those are our negatives, guys. We're not going to have a spoiler section, because with having a 8 episodes, and it's hard to do a whole spoiler thing. So
that's a lot of digging, and So
let's get to our overall thoughts and our final rankings of Castlevania Season 2.
So guys, if you're watching Castlevania Season 2 for like nostalgia purposes, because you love the original Nintendo games, you probably won't like it as much because the universe is so much bigger than it was just from the Nintendo games.
Right.
And I feel like if it's for nostalgic purposes, you're gonna have some negatives to with watching it.
Exactly, you're gonna be like I was. Looking for Dracula, looking for Simon, looking for these things that you're not going to get, because it's expanded a lot past that. But what I can say about the show that I really did, I like the show a lot. I had a lot of fun with the show, and it ended on a satisfying conclusion. Season 2 ended on a very satisfying conclusion, but it ended so it could also pick back up for another season. I'm glad it didn't end on like a true cliffhanger. It ended leaving you wanting more, but it's satisfying. This isn't like a...
So if it doesn't get picked up, it doesn't have another season,
right,
then you're okay with it.
Right. Yeah. I'm truly hoping for another season. This doesn't end like Ash vs. the Evil Dead or Chucky Season 3.
Where you get no closure.
No closure whatsoever. This could end right here and it would be satisfying. But I had so much fun with this, guys. I'm actually going to give this a 3.75 out of 5. I didn't want to put my phone down. I watched the whole thing in a day. All 8 episodes in a day. That's how much I truly, truly liked it. I didn't want to walk away from it. So you might have noticed by our negatives, we were kind of reachy at some points, but that's genuine. I had a lot of fun with this. So for me, I'm going to give it a 3.75 out of 5. Maybe if I educated myself a little more on the lore past Super Castlevania 4, I might have liked it a little bit more because I was looking for characters that never showed up. So that's where I'm going to stay at.
I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's not my thing.
She's never been a Castlevania person.
I'm not necessarily like a Castlevania person. So I didn't go into this for like nostalgia purposes. Like this is, something of my childhood. So I wasn't really that excited for it to even watch it. But I will say that it's a good story. And like Ken said, it's fun.
There's a lot of funny moments too that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Like there were moments that genuinely made me laugh while I was watching it.
Absolutely. You feel things. It makes you feel things, and it's a cartoon. So that alone, it
She's never been too much of an animation person anyway.
No.
Unless you're talking, Disney Pixar.
Yeah.
But if it's like adult animation or stuff like that, it's never been it. So
it's not my thing.
I took 2 things here: Castlevania and adult animation that Ashley is not a huge fan of, and threw them together.
And
she
got a 2.5
still,
out of 5.
I was saying
so
she still gave it a 2.5 out of 5. That's a 4 out of 5 to most people. So
pretty good. Yeah.
If you haven't seen Castlevania Season 2 yet, please check it out. It is available on Netflix now. If you have seen it, please let us know down in the comments. What are your thoughts? What directions would you like to see them go for a Season 3, should that happen? We would really love to know your guys' thoughts. But if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.